Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a very interesting 2.5, 3 weeks of travel and recovery and all of that. And it's good to be back in good old Kansas and the fall season, I can tell you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my London trip in a minute, but first I just want to remind you that we are in our October promotion of So Confident as a singular workshop. And also, we're making the Haiku Jacket. The video has been released, so you have immediate access to that if you need it. And we still have some kits in this mustard color and in black. So check it out. This is very interesting fabric. We need a microphone. Bessie's just going off to get the microphones. We've been chatting so much that we've forgotten to set up everything. I haven't seen Bessie for a while. So, all right, we'll give it a second here and get mic'd up.
All right, sorry about that.
That's all right.
We're chatting, and yeah, let's put these on here. Oh.
That's mine. It has. So we're using white?
Do you want white or black?
Doesn't matter.
That's you.
Normally I put this little device, let's see if I can do it. Maybe I'll turn around for a minute. Are we on, Betsy?
Looks like it.
All right, I am so sorry about that. Seriously, I've been gone and Bessie and I were chatting and we didn't do the complete setup. But that's what Facebook Live's all about, isn't it? Just and people love it when we don't do things right, so I guess we're okay. All right, so I was talking about the Haiku Two Jacket, and the fabric is very unique. It's all cotton, and it's a jacquard knit. I'm not sure if that's a thing or not, honestly. I've never really looked that up, but it does have this very interesting texture to it. And we've made just one little modification in the pattern for the video, so I hope that you will take the class and learn how to sew on bulky sweater knits. That's the theme of the class. All right, as I said before, we just completed our London textile tour, the one that was canceled 3 times, and finally were able to go. And it was a fabulous trip, I have to say. London was vibrant and busy, and it was after all of the extravagant goings-on relating to the Queen, and so we were able to get around the city just fine and see what we wanted to see, and it was fabulous. But we saw things like vintage clothing from the royals. For instance, we saw the very, very famous midnight blue velvet long gown that Princess Di had worn, and it was an incredible dress, and we got to really touch it and inspect it a little bit. We saw a couple of dresses very early on in Queen Elizabeth's life and Princess Margaret's life, made out of Liberty of London cottons with sweet little collars to them. I mean, it was everything from historical costuming to very modern costuming. One of the things that I thought was the most interesting was at the Fashion Museum in Bath. They had really the history of fashion, not the whole history of fashion, but 100 garments that kind of represented the changes of how we dress. And towards the end, there were exhibits of the dress of the year. And one of them was from H&M, which we know is a fast fashion, less expensive brand, and it was pink, fuchsia pink tulle layered, worn by Kendall Jenner. And I just thought that was interesting, that it was, the garment that was chosen was not a Dior or a Alexander McQueen or an Etro or something like that. It was literally kind of off the rack, but it was the dress that sold more dresses than any dress in the history of buying dresses. So I don't know if any of you own that dress. I don't, but it was interesting. So, but I would say that we had about for me, there were highlights, and everybody on the trip had a different highlight, but my personal highlights related to actual visits to workshops by artists, textile artists. And we started off with a day with Sarah Campbell. Now, I've talked about Sarah Campbell before because she visited Topeka in about 2.5 years ago, and people painted textiles using fabric paint. And this is, I asked her if I could keep this. This was her sampler that she worked on during the class. And so you can see that it's not really perhaps a piece of fabric that you would use, although, I don't know, it's possible. But one of the things to note about it is her repetitive designs. These rectangles that go vertically and horizontally, and it's all about the width of the brush she uses and the density of the paint and so on and so forth. Her style and her history relates to Collier Campbell. She and her sister owned Collier Campbell some years ago, and this is one of these coffee table books that kind of blows your mind. It's so beautiful. But you can, if you really look at this, you see, because she's a textile designer that's going to be in running yardage, that her designs have repeats to them, and she uses a lot of strips of rectangles in them. Vibrant colors, really beautiful. This book is still available, the Collier Campbell Archives. It probably has a different cover at this point because it's been around for a while and republished a time or two, but check it out because it's truly a gorgeous book and full of inspiration for color combinations and motifs. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about an artistic expression of to put in some of your garments, and we just get stuck, I think, about where to find inspiration, and it's books like this that I think are just, you don't even know exactly what you're taking from it, but by flipping through it, ideas emerge, and you went, oh, now I remember that. So that was the one of the days. This is my little sampler. Not very good, but I thought I'd show it anyway because otherwise it won't see the light of day ever. Although I might make a bag or a pillow out of this, I haven't really decided. But we experimented with sponges and brushes and potatoes and all kinds of tools to create our little sampler. So that was the first workshop that we took. And then we traveled to Bath at the end of the trip for about 2 days. And I went to the home/studio of Carol Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R. And I realized when I went in there that I actually recognized her work a little bit. I hadn't quite put it together. But a while back, there used to be a true art-to-wear store on Madison Avenue in New York. It was called Jule's. And it was owned by Julie Dale, and she carried art-to-wear clothing from all over the world, but a lot of them were from designers and artists who taught at the sewing workshop in San Francisco back when we had the school in San Francisco. And so Carol Waller was one of the artists that she presented at that store. Now that store is closed, unfortunately, but there is a book, another coffee table book, that if you love to look at fashion, this is one to keep in your library. I think you can still get this book. It is out of print. It's pretty expensive, but it's amazing, called Art to Wear. I remember back in the day, I would talk to some of these artists who were featured in this, and we all had this idea of what art to wear really is. And of course, their art to wear encompasses way more than just embellishment on the surface of a fabric. It is altering the characteristic of a fabric completely. For instance, Jean Casacedo was the first person to take wool jersey knit, throw it in the washing machine on hot water and dry it and boil it and felt it and then do reverse applique garments. So things like that. They were attacking every facet of from the textile to the embellishment and the whole thing. And that's kind of what this book is all about. So Carol Waller that workshop, we did two things. For half of a day, we used a hot press. First, we painted on regular paper, just random designs. For instance, this is some torn paper that had already been painted, and these are just little pieces that I've stuck on a regular sheet of paper. And then with a press and the fabric that went over it, this is how it turned out. And of course, it was always kind of a surprise because my pieces are rather muted, but my little sample is quite bright. I'd never done anything like this. It was really, really fun. Here's one that's very pale. The painting is very pale. I was into abstracts because I couldn't get my arms around painting anything very realistic. But this is the paper version of my painting, and then this is the fabric version of it. Again, a little more vibrancy to the colors. This is on like a little wool felt. You know, we printed on natural fibers for the most part, and not any synthetics. Let's see, one more maybe. Yeah, I think this one's sort of amazing. In fact, it's so amazing I couldn't even find which one this was, but I think this is what I started with. Again, natural dye looking colors, and then this is what it turned out to be. So that was the morning, and then in the afternoon we did some silk screening, which I had never done. Totally out of my comfort zone, my element. I'd never knew anything about it, but she walked us through the process in her beautiful studio, and I did produce a scarf, which I like and I will wear. So that was the day's production, which I thought was, you know, quite nice. Of course, she had various rooms full of things to buy. And one of the rooms had a jacket in it, a black jacket, kind of short, kind of kimono style. And it was embellished with some strips of torn silks that had been hand dyed, and then just stitched on the sewing machine very neatly, although they were raw edged, and you could see that raw edged element of the rectangles. And Marie tried it on, and it was a gorgeous jacket. Don't think she bought it, but nevertheless, we all stared at it. I took a picture of it. You know, it was really great. So that was Carol. So then we went to another studio / home of Andrea Cryer. Now, Andrea does mostly portraits, but some architectural buildings in thread tracing, I'll call it. Outlines of buildings, outlines of facial features, all machine embroidery, all free motion embroidery on a very simple sewing machine. She uses a Bernina 1008, which is, you know, we consider kind of a classroom category of sewing machine. So not a fancy one, not an expensive one. And it was just amazing to think that she could produce these incredible images with a very simple sewing machine. It makes you realize that, well, you know, we always want the latest and greatest, but maybe we don't always need it either for what we do. And then after that's done, then she does a similar process of what Carol Waller does, in that she puts down some color with a heat press and fills in kind of blurred edges within the drawing. So it's not a hard-edged, you know, paint by number sort of thing, but there's definitely a color change within certain elements of the thread painting. And one of the things that I noticed about her work is that she leaves all the tails, the beginning tail and the ending tail of the thread. And so these are just all here and there all over the work. And I liked that. And she only uses black thread. Or at least I didn't see anything with any other colors. To my knowledge, she doesn't have a book or anything, but I did find this book by Shelly Rhodes that is called Sketchbook Explorations for mixed media and textile artists. And there are tons of ideas in here of how to stitch on images and then use thread in that image. So there's a relationship to this, and it was, I guess I just liked that rawness of leaving the tails. So here are the websites of these three artists, and I really suggest that you check them out because each one of them have fantastic websites. Sarah Campbell has a lot of images of her fabric. She's currently designing fabrics for Free Spirit, so check out her first collection, and the second collection will be out soon. And they're, of course, colorful and happy and whimsical and wonderful. And, excuse me, Carol Waller, this is her website, and Andrea Cryer this is her website. So nice things to check out when you have a moment and you want to be visually inspired to think about what you're going to do for your garments. Although I have to tell you, I got an email from Andrea Cryer, who is, in my mind, you know, the supreme artist, but just yesterday, she sent me an email and she said, it was so inspiring to see garment sewers. I'm all inspired to sew clothes now. And we weren't even talking about that, but so many of us had on sewing workshop garments, and I guess we just reeked of being a sewer or something, and so just our presence inspired her to sew something besides a face, I guess. So anyway, check out these websites. I think you'll enjoy them. It's a lot of fun. By the way, the Sketchbook Explorations is published by Batsford, B-A-T-S-F-O-R-D, and I find that all of the Batsford published books are really different and interesting. And I don't know that you can get them anywhere but Batsford, so you might want to check out batsford.com. Not sure about that, but they're a little more of a boutique press type business. But Mandy Patullo, Claire Wellesley Smith, Shelly Rhodes, they all have been published by that publisher. So I come back. Now, originally, I was going to do my wardrobe that I wore to London, that I packed in my carry-on, just like I did for the France trip. And I was going to show that to you. But my wardrobe was a failure because it got really cold. And I don't know, when I left here, it was 105 degrees, and I had a hard time imagining what 42 was going to feel like, a little drizzly, whatever. So I did not have completely what I needed. In fact, I ended up buying a jacket over there. I was so cold. The only good thing about the jacket was I bought a jacket at the Laver Cup, if you know what that is. So, at any rate, I was going to do, so then I thought, well, I'll do a wardrobe thing of what I took, why it didn't work, and then show you what I should have taken. But you know what? There's something called time, and it just got away from me. So believe it or not, I was able to actually make a jacket that it took me less time to do that than it was going to take me to kind of put a whole wardrobe together. So I have on the jacket that I made since I've been home, and I got home last Thursday. And this jacket's been inspired by all three of these artists that I've been talking about. First of all, I don't really have a great black jacket, which seems amazing because I have every imaginable black coat, but I don't have a black jacket, and I don't have a short black jacket. So I decided to take the Ikina Two Jacket, which is now also in print in addition to being digital, and just simply shorten it. So this is the Ikina Two Jacket, like the pattern, longer, has pockets, has instructions for piping between the lapel and the front, and piping above this little extension of the sleeve. Long opening slits at the sides. What I noticed was that these designers, who are mostly artists and sewers second, or else they have other people sewing for them, this kimono style jacket is that canvas that they like to work with because there's a lot of surface to embellish, or it highlights the fabrics that they've dyed or painted or whatever. So this style of jacket is very universal. and popular with artists. And I like our Ikina 2 because it fits really well. One of the things that I like about it is that there are 2 darts at the shoulder, coming out of the back neck. And so this has a really nice fit over the shoulder and around the neck. And this garment just sits in place. So many boxy jackets want to fall back. And these darts really, really make a difference. So first of all, this fits really nicely. It has this narrow lapel. We narrowed it. We used to have an Ikina jacket pattern, and we revamped it a little bit and turned it into the Ikina 2. So we narrowed the lapel, I think modernized it just a little bit, shortened the sleeve and all of that. So I decided I need a black jacket. Well, which black? We have a lot of black fabrics. And I could have done wool, I could have done cotton, I could have done knit, but I chose linen. I just like the idea of the casual aspect of this black jacket, because if I put it into other things, they might tend to be a little bit too dressy, and this is the kind of jacket I'm going to throw on for a lot of days in the Kansas weather. So I took the pattern and I shortened it 8 inches from the original. Now I did that in 2 places. There's a lengthen and shorten line about midway, and I took 1 inch along that lengthen and shorten line. So I reduced it by 1 inch there. And then I took 7 inches out through that vent. So instead of having a long vent opening at the side like this, I now have this. Now notice, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I did some miscalculation because I have a ½ inch difference between my front and my back. So obviously I can't do math, which I've known my whole life, actually. But I decided when I got it all done that, you know, the way that it hangs on the body and kind of splays out, that ½ inch made no difference whatsoever. What I like about this garment is it has deep hems. It has this nice band at the sleeve, so there's a weight to it that it hangs really nicely, and it doesn't look like an inexpensive garment that just has a tiny little edge to it. And the linen was easy to work with. Now, I went through a whole, I don't know, worry process of, do I wash the fabric first? Do I wash the jacket? What do I do? Well, since I knew I wanted to do some embellishment on it, and I wanted those embellishments to be raw edged, I thought I'll just make the jacket in the linen, and then I'll throw and embellish it, and then I'll throw the whole thing in the washing machine, which always just scares me to death because you've done all this work and you don't know how it's going to work. So I washed a sample and realized that this linen did not shrink, so I was going to be okay with that. So I made the jacket last Saturday. Took the afternoon and made the jacket. It's actually an easy construction, and it's pretty mindless. I was watching college football. So the jacket was done. Well, then I took some fabrics like these, some printed fabrics that kind of remind me of Sarah Campbell. These are not her designs. They're actually Marcia Durst designs. But these could easily be some similar motifs that Sarah Campbell does. I thought, well, these are the perfect fabrics to tear into strips and use as my strips of embellishment. So I took just cut off about 1 yard of fabric. It was more than this one. So I could tear it where I wanted it into just strips, random strips. If I wanted light and dark, I cut it there or tore it there. If I wanted color, I tore it there. Kind of, picked and chose what I wanted here and there. This is the fabric that I used on this jacket. And then I let it sit until the next day. And then I decided, I don't think I want to wash this jacket embellished. So I threw the unembellished, non-embellished black jacket in the washing machine and crossed my fingers. And it turned out just great. That softened the linen just a little bit. Not that it's a super stiff linen, because it's not. But it did make it more like the style that I want, where it has a different kind of crease to it, more of a rumple than a hard-edged wrinkle. So I liked the effect. And then I only had about an hour and a half left in my life to devote to the embellishment. Now, that's really not enough time to put your mind around it and do experiments and tests and all that, which is what I normally would have done. As it turned out, I was glad I only had about an hour, hour and a half, because I just did it. And I didn't think about it, and I didn't change it. And there's something to be said for that as well. So I tore these strips, and I used a chalkener to just at least define a line, straight line. And I decided that I wanted to have each strip about 2.5 inches wide. I happened to have a template in my little stash by my ironing board that was 2.5 inches wide, so I just used this edge as the cutting and marking of these strips. And I placed them in sort of pleasing fashion, just kind of like Sarah Campbell kind of thing, and pinned them on. And then I stood in front of a mirror and decided that, do I need to adjust the placement of these? Was it too tall, too short, off to the side too much, whatever. So once I was happy with the placement, then I went back to the ironing board and used just a little dab of Fusee Web. I'm sure that all of you know what Fusee Web is now. I've talked about it forever. But it is a paper-covered piece of glue. So once you press it down and the paper comes off, you're left with this little web of glue. So just enough to hold it in place. Got all of them glued down lightly, not clear to the edges or the whole thing, just a little dab to hold it instead of a pin. And then I decided to do some stitching, very much like what the Carol Waller jacket had, these vertical stitches and some horizontal stitches, some of which extended beyond the patches and others did not. And I decided to use red thread, mostly so that you could see it, I hope. And that didn't take any time at all. There was just no thought about it. I didn't try to measure anything. I just stitched it to get them down. Well, so I was just stitching them and not cutting the tails off. And then I thought, you know, the thing I loved most about Andrea Cryer's work were the threads. So I left all the threads, tails and beginning threads. And I did kind of give it a little bit of a haircut because some of them were very long, but I really like the effect. I don't know, I hope you can see this. Do you think you can see it?
There we go. Yeah.
Is it better? So here are the threads, and today I just put the jacket on. I didn't even fuss with where the threads are. They're just landing where they land. And so I did a long one strip on one side and a little block of things here. And I'm pretty happy with it. This is a super comfortable jacket, perfect for this weather. I think I could wear this almost all year round. And it turned out to be fantastic. In the middle of all this making, I remembered a little story about a jacket. This happens to be the Haiku. This is the original Haiku jacket, I think. And of course, we're featuring the Haiku 2 this month. These are the same jackets. And this is a short version of it. And this is with the lapel coming to the outside. The knit one has the lapel going to the inside. But I remember sitting at the Kansas City Art Institute at a table selling patterns. This is years ago. Looking across the aisle to a booth that had this beautiful length of fabric, about 3 yards long, of silk fabric, textured, that had been hand dyed. And I just had to have it. It was one of those pieces that, you know, you knew you weren't going to walk out of there without buying. So I bought the fabric, and some years later then I made a Haiku jacket, and this is the fabric that I bought. So of course, if you're a hand dyer or printer, you know, you can just use your fabric and make a haiku or make an Ikina, and you're good to go. Well, I had some scraps of that fabric, so I decided to do this little version where I used the same hand-dyed fabric for this lapel, and then these are scraps of fabrics, silk fabrics from my stash, and I just simply sewed them together into a strip, sewed that down. So in a way, it's almost like what I have on, only a little bit more refined because I turned the edges. No, I didn't even turn the edges. These are raw edges. Yeah, never mind. I've sewn these together and not shown the seams, and these are raw edges. I can tell that I've backed this fabric pretty well so it doesn't ravel, so it looks a little more refined. But I think this actually turned out pretty good. So, take a piece of fabric that you love and tear it or cut it up and use it for embellishments. I was going to use, actually, my original idea was to use the samples that I'd made in Carol Waller's workshop and tear them up and use it on this jacket. And then, I don't know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't tear them. I liked looking at them. And so I just left them as samples, and that's when I decided to utilize these beautiful fabrics, which I think are perfect. They're very artistic. They look like they've been hand painted. They look hand dyed, and so for a fraction of the price of hand dyed yardage, you can have some fantastic embellishment fabric. These are all cotton, kind of quilt weight, lightweight cotton, and you know, you get a yard of it and you can do anything with it, or you get 2.5 yards and make a fabulous shirt with it. So let me show you some base fabrics that I think would make a great neutral, darkish jacket for you. And we'll start with the linen that I have on, which is right here. Just a nice classic mid-weight linen. Now these linens, these two grays, this one and this one, are sort of new to us, and they are, they're actually a twill. No, they're not. These are these washed linens, right? These are the laundered linens, right, Betsy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking they were twilled.
The dark one is a twill.
The dark one is a twill. For some reason, this one is not. This is just a nice washed linen, but two charcoals and the black. And then this is a navy linen because I saw so much navy in London. Camel and navy were the colors of the season. And I actually took a navy ensemble with me, and that actually worked. So navy linen, it's the same weight as the black that I have on. This is a wonderful cotton, a jacquard cotton. And this has a nice polka dot weave to it. So it has a little more interest. So let's say you wanted to use this as a jacket. Well, then you could use some of these circular motifs, perhaps, to kind of bring in, excuse me, the curve of the polka dot with curves of these shapes. Or not. I don't think it really matters, but you know, if you need a little more inspiration, you can utilize what's in your hand. I also think you could use a ponte knit. I think it'd make a gorgeous jacket. Ponte's stable enough that if you wanted to sew some patches, do some stitching on it, it would handle it just fine. This is dark navy, ponte, make a very nice jacket. And then we also have this fabric that I'm pretty crazy about. This is actually a deep, deep, deep dark charcoal worsted wool from Laura Piano. Now, I remembered that I had made a pair of Valencia pants out of this fabric. And this is a good pair of trousers. This has been on the rack, it's been on my body, it's traveled. This fabric is just like the high-end men's suits that most people can't afford. I mean, beautiful, beautiful, thousands of dollars suits. So this is what this fabric is. This is actually the fabric that I first considered using, and then I decided I wanted the linen. But nevertheless, it's a gorgeous piece of fabric. Whether you're going to make a jacket with it or not, you probably need to put this in your wardrobe and at least make a pair of pants out of it because you'll have them forever. And even though this wool, worsted wool, is not scratchy like other wools, I have very sensitive skin and I can wear these pants and they're unlined, and so you should be able to be fine with that. I have one other project I want to show you that also is kind of part of this whole topic of embellishment and stitching. This is our Provence Market Bag. Now, this is a smaller version of it. When you get the pattern, the bag is bigger, but we reduced this by 75%. By 75%. By 75%. To 75%. Thank you. I told you math wasn't my best. So I've used a stripe, which is what inspired me to wear my striped pants. So see, all things kind of come together. And then I've done some painting. Actually, this was more like silk screening. And then some patches and hand stitched them on rather than machine stitched. But this is a great bag. You know, it's slim, but it does have this interesting shape that creates a little bit of fullness to it, so you can hold a lot in this bag, and it's just kind of the right size. So this is on a natural linen with paint and patches and stitches. All right, do we have any questions?
I believe so.
All right.
Okay. So, can you remind them what jackets you're talking about, please?
I am wearing the Ikina Two Jacket. Comes in both printed form and digital form.
And what size are you wearing?
I am wearing a small, size small.
Okay.
I kind of wish I'd made a medium, to tell you the truth, but it's a small.
Do the shoulder darts eliminate the need for a round back adjustment?
Yeah, they might. I'm not sure about that. I think that, see how this stands away? Maybe this model needs a rounded back. I would think maybe you might still need it. At first I thought maybe no, but seeing this jacket on this dress form probably could do it, yeah.
How would you do it? Would you do it below the darts?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Can you come up close to show your embellishments
Yeah.
again? And you used red thread.
Red thread, yep.
Are your embellishments all stitched down by hand or machine?
All the patches are stitched down by machine.
Any updates on the Patchwork Now shirt from Kathy?
Any updates on the what now?
That Patchwork Now shirt from Kathy.
Patchwork.
Yeah, I remember it had that thing. We're working on a post or something for it.
I don't remember a patchwork jacket from her.
Well, check it out then. How much yardage?
What are we working on that jacket?
I think it was the Now jacket you showed, and it had like a pocket on it. I assume that's what they're talking about.
Well, I will say this, that if you're talking about the chartreuse colored linen jacket that had the band and the unique pockets, we're putting that into the So Confident program next year. So you will see it. A patchwork jacket, I honestly can't quite remember that she had one, but maybe she did.
Okay.
I can't remember.
How much yardage for the Ikina 2 shortened by 8 inches?
Oh, you would need, you can get by with, 8 inches times 2, you can get by with a half a yard less. You basically need 2 lengths of whatever jacket. My jacket, I tried on a couple of things out of my closet and measured them on me, and 24 inches long is what I decided I wanted in the back. And so that was my starting point, and that's how I knew I wanted to shorten it by 8 inches.
Someone asked what size I would wear in the jacket, and if I would make any changes. I would wear an extra small, and I would just probably figure out what length worked best.
Yeah.
So that's about it. What are the general measurements of the Provence bag that you're showing?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say the bottom is 12 and a quarter inches, and the height is about 16 inches or something like that. I don't know. I don't have a tape measure handy, but
It says they can't hear me, but my thing's working. If you guys can hear me, tell me.
I'll repeat the questions.
Okay. Otherwise, let's see. Can you show those website links again, please?
Show the what again?
The website links.
Oh, sure. Betsy has a soft voice, and I'm getting hard of hearing. So between the two of us, we say things about 3 times, or I do. She does, I mean. Here are the websites for the 3 artists. I'll bring it a little bit closer.
Okay. Can you use a hot iron to transfer the paint colors to the fabric?
Yes, you can use a hot iron to transfer the painted paper to the fabric. The colors will be slightly less intense. They'll be a little bit lighter, but yes, absolutely.
Okay. Can I try on the medium jacket on camera? Do we have a medium?
I don't know. Do we have a medium? I don't think we have. Well, this is a medium.
It's a medium.
You're going to swim in this, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you could wear that around the house.
Yeah. It's flowy. Yeah, I think I would do extra small probably.
Yeah, and you either need to go to the floor with it,
yeah,
or make it super short.
This just looks like I'm dressing up in my
Yeah.
mother's clothing. Okay.
Betsy, the greatest story about Betsy, I don't think I've ever told this on camera, but she walked in one day with a cocoa blouse that fit her beautifully. And when she left it and hung it on the wall downstairs by my office. And I kept looking at it and thinking, that is so small. I know she makes an extra small in everything. This just seems like really small. So weeks go by, and finally Betsy figures out that her printer was not set at 100% for the pattern. It was set at 75 or 80 or whatever.
I think it was 75.
And so there you go. If you need a smaller size than extra small, don't print it out at 100%.
It wasn't easy fitting. You know, I didn't have to make any adjustments. Just sure.
That's one of the best stories ever.
It worked out. What pants are you wearing?
I'm wearing the Picasso pants in the railroad stripe.
Okay.
Linen. And I have on an ET, just a white ET with a black ready-to-wear binding.
Who wrote the Sketchbook book?
That is by Shelly Rhodes, Shelley Rhodes.
All right. I don't have any other questions.
All right.
So I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoy a project like this. Just remember, you know, you can make this jacket in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, let's say, on a Saturday or Sunday, and you can do your embellishments in an hour, hour and a half. That's pretty good for a nice little jacket. So on sale this week, we have the Ikina 2 pattern, either digital or print. We have the Provence Market Bag pattern, which is a download only, and all the fabrics. And then we have a tutorial called, I always forget the name of this.
Fine-tune your sewing skills.
Thank you. Fine-tune your sewing skills. And the reason that's on sale is this particular jacket has asymmetric miters, meaning that the hem that joins with the side vent hem are 2 different widths. So the miter is not a 45 degree, and that technique is in that tutorial in addition to so many of the things that I talk about all the time. I haven't looked lately, but it's probably a 50 or 60 page tutorial full of goodies of how you do the things that we like to do around here at the Sewing Workshop. So check it out, and let's see, am I going to see you next week? I think I am. So thank you, Betsy, for filling in. Erin's gone, and Betsy is behind the camera today, so I appreciate it. Thank you.